All right, welcome. Today we are tackling one of the biggest, most fundamental questions about being human. Why are we religious?
So get this. Archaeologists have found evidence of religious beliefs. And we're talking way back, at least 60,000 years ago. With our ancestors, the Neanderthals. That is just ancient. It's one of the oldest human traditions we know of for sure.
So, that's how long we've had religion. But the big question is, why? This has fascinated anthropologists forever. What is it about us that leads to these beliefs, which you can find in literally every corner of the globe? Okay, let's jump in and start looking for some answers.
Okay, so first things first. Before we can even start to ask why we have religion, we got to be clear on what we're even talking about. Let's get a working definition.
One of the first and maybe simplest definitions came from a 19th century anthropologist named E.B. Tylor. For him, it all boiled down to one thing: a belief in spiritual beings. That was it. That was the bare minimum. And he argued it's a cultural universal, something you find in every single society ever studied.
All right, so our first stop on this journey is going to take us back to the earliest anthropological theories. These were really influenced by the idea of evolution, and the big question they were obsessed with was, how did this all get started in the first place?
See, early thinkers like Tylor looked at the world and thought, well, if societies evolve from simple to complex, then religion must do the same thing, right? They pictured this straight line of progression, starting with something really basic and then getting more complicated over time.
And Tylor's big idea was that the earliest form was something called animism. He thought early humans were trying to figure out these huge mysteries, like dreams. Where does your soul go when your body's asleep? Or death. And from that, they developed this concept of a spirit that's separate from the body. And once they had that idea, they started applying it to everything: rocks, rivers, animals, the sky, you name it. So for Tylor, this was the absolute foundation. He argued that from this one simple belief in spirits, you could trace a clear evolutionary path. It starts with animism, then grows into polytheism, believing in many gods, and then finally into monotheism, the belief in just one all-powerful God.
Now, another guy, Sir James Frazer, he took this whole evolutionary idea and just ran with it. He mapped out this grand progression for all of human thought. He said, we started with magic, trying to control nature directly with spells and rituals. But when we realized that didn't always work, we moved on to religion, where we'd appeal to these higher supernatural beings for help. But here's the kicker. Frazer made a really bold prediction. He said that eventually, religion itself would get replaced by science as we figured out how to understand the world through natural, observable laws.
But after a while, anthropologists started to shift gears a bit. They began asking a totally new kind of question. What if trying to find the origin of religion isn't the most important thing? What if we should be looking at what religion actually does for a society, right here, right now?
And that is the central question for what's called the functionalist school of thought. For them, religion wasn't some kind of primitive, failed attempt at science. No way. It was a vital social tool, an institution with really crucial jobs to do.
So the sociologist Emil Durkheim, he argued that the absolute bedrock of all religious life is this split, this division of the entire world into two different domains, the sacred and the profane. The profane is just, it's the ordinary, mundane, everyday stuff. But the sacred? Those are the things and spaces set apart, the things that inspire awe and reverence because they represent the interests of the whole group. And here's Durkheim's brilliant insight. When a group of people collectively agree on what is sacred, they stop being just a bunch of individuals and become a real community, bound together by that shared belief.
Building on that idea, another anthropologist, Bronislaw Malinowski, he zeroed in on the psychological functions religion serves for us as individuals. He saw it as this incredibly powerful tool for dealing with anxiety and crisis. Think about it. It gives us comfort when we're facing death, it offers explanations for things that feel totally out of our control, and it strengthens our social bonds right when we need them the most.
Okay, so we've talked about evolution, and we've talked about function. But another group of thinkers, they wanted to dig even deeper. They suggested that maybe religion isn't just a tool, but a whole complex system of meaning.
This is where we get to the structuralists, like Claude Lévi-Strauss. For them, religion and all its myths are basically a kind of language. So when you analyze them, you're not just learning about one specific culture. You're actually learning about the fundamental, universal patterns of the human mind itself. It's all about how our brains are wired to think.
And one of the core patterns they found everywhere is that our minds just love to think in opposites.
Good versus evil, nature versus culture. We call these binary oppositions. For example, in some parts of India, this plays out in this deep cultural divide between purity and impurity. And these are not just abstract ideas, okay? They organize the real world, influencing everything from what you eat to your actual place in society.
And maybe the most famous take on this comes from Clifford Geertz. He saw religion as this powerful cultural system of symbols that literally shapes how we see reality. It takes a certain worldview, right, and it wraps it in such an aura of factuality that the moods and motivations it creates feel completely, unshakably real.
Okay, our final stop on this tour is going to take a bit of a critical turn. We're going to look at theories that don't see religion as a window into the divine or even the human mind, but as a projection, a reflection of our own societies and our own inner psychologies.
You've probably heard this one. Karl Marx had a famously critical take on religion. He wasn't really interested in whether it was true or not. He wanted to know what it did. And for him, it was a human invention, created to serve a very specific social and economic purpose.
Yeah, for Marx, religion was basically like a powerful drug. The opium of the people, as he said. It makes the pain of an oppressive system more bearable, but it does absolutely nothing to cure the actual disease, which he saw as economic exploitation. By promising a reward in the afterlife, it gives people a reason not to fight for a better life right here, right now, which makes it a pretty convenient tool for keeping things just the way they are.
And then, of course, there's Sigmund Freud. He looked for the origins of religion deep inside the individual psyche. He basically argued that religious beliefs are projections of our deepest, unresolved subconscious stuff, our conflicts and desires. Things like the complicated relationship between a father and a son get transformed and projected outward into these powerful gods and sacred symbols.
So wow, after that whole journey, you might be asking, okay, so which one is the right answer? Well, here's the thing, that's kind of the wrong question to ask. Anthropology doesn't give us one single neat explanation. What it gives us instead is a powerful toolkit. Each of these theories is like a different lens that we can use to see and understand a different piece of this incredibly complex, deeply human puzzle.
And that leaves us with one last big thought to chew on. If these theories are right, if religion really is a kind of mirror that reflects our society, our minds, our deepest needs, and our biggest fears, then what do the beliefs, the rituals, and the symbols of our modern world say about us? What do they reflect about who we are, right here, right now?